and to make sure that they've, are fully meet international standards. Nadia.
Thank you. On Gaza, 500,000 people are facing catastrophic level of hunger, especially in the north, and actually WFP is describing the situation as full-blown famine. So what exactly are you doing to pressurize or persuade or cajole the Israelis to make sure that this is not going to happen and not materialize in actually a full famine?
So we continue to work day and night. Our special envoy for Middle East humanitarian issues is back in the region today after being back in Washington for consultations around Minister Gallant's visit. She's back in the region working on this exact issue today, trying to not just get humanitarian aid into Gaza, but most importantly, make sure it is distributed around Gaza. I think everyone's aware that that has been the chief impediment to actually getting food to the Palestinian people. It's not getting aid into the pier, it's not getting aid into Kerem Shalom, it's then making sure that it can be distributed from those points onward. We have had a number of discussions between, we have been involved in a number of discussions in the past few days between the various United Nations agencies and various components of the Israeli government to try to work through some security challenges that the UN is currently facing to deliver humanitarian assistance. We continue to push to try to resolve their legitimate concerns about the safety and security of their personnel, and are continuing to push to try to work through some asks that they have on the table pending with the government of Israel to try to make it safer for their personnel to take humanitarian assistance and deliver it around to the people of Gaza.
That was my follow-up, actually, because the UN said that
I anticipated
Israel,
that.
I read my mind. that Israel. So, do you believe that actually the Israelis can improve the way that the UN agencies, especially their workers, are delivering the aid? It could be met.
Yeah, there are a number of things that Israel can do. I spoke to some of them yesterday. Some of them is to allow protective personal equipment for UN workers. Some is to kind of increase communications between the IDF and COGAD and UN workers. And then there's some other things too that the UN workers have asked for that I'm not going to get into from this podium, but there is more that can be done. There are some of the requests where Israel has legitimate security concerns, and what we're trying to do is broker agreements that give the UN personnel the assurances they need that they can operate securely while still protecting Israel's legitimate security concerns.
One last question is, I'm sure you've seen these detailed reports that most of them have harrowing accounts of Palestinian prisoners being rounded up. Some of them are being sexually assaulted, shackled for hours, inhumane conditions, and that's a description of Israeli human rights organizations like B'Tselem and others, and witnesses who are actually a part of the IDF who came and talked about what happened. So you often call Israel as an ally who you shared values with. So how can the United States make sure that these things, which is obviously unacceptable for most democracies, that is not allowed to happen? What exactly are you doing? What the mechanism that you're using to make sure that this is not happening, and if you're investigating it yourself?
So with respect to any investigations, there are, as I've said before, a number of incidents that we are reviewing when it relates to potential human rights abuses, potential violations of the laws of war, and I'm not going to speak to any particular incident from here, but there are a number of incidents where we have reviews ongoing. But that said, separate and apart from that, we have made clear to Israel that we fully expect them to comply with all human rights laws, international laws of war. That includes the treatment of prisoners and detainees. And when there are abuses, those ought to be investigated. If accountability is appropriate, there ought to be accountability, and we'll continue to make that clear then. Sure. Who was that? Who asked the question?
Yeah, I wanted to follow on that.
Sure. And I would say that's the last time today I'm going to do without raising hand, but go ahead.
Oh, I apologize. It was a follow-on. On investigation of the use of Palestinians as human shields, or video that was on social media today about Israeli forces using attack dogs. You talk about investigations. Logistically, what does an investigation look like, and when would we see results of that type of investigation?
So it depends whose investigation you're speaking to. If you mean the reviews that are going on by the United States, there are personnel inside the State Department that conduct reviews with respect to the laws of war in this conflict, as we do in other places around the world. And I don't speak to those reviews before they're finalized, nor can I preview when they would be finished. But just to speak to some of the complexity that we face in launching those reviews, and it's the same complexity I face sometimes in answering questions about this from the podium. So yesterday, Doctors Without Borders put out a statement saying that a doctor who was a member of Doctors Without Borders was killed by an IDF strike while, I believe, on his way to work inside Gaza. I was asked about it at the podium. I said, I can't give you an assessment on that strike because I don't know the details. Hours later, the IDF put out a statement saying that that particular doctor was also a terrorist member of Palestinian Islamic Jihad, who was a member of a participant in their rocket program. I don't have the ability to litigate that claim. We don't, at first blush, often have the ability to litigate claims made by the different parties in this conflict. And so I know sometimes when I'm asked to pronounce judgment, it's frustrating that we can't do it. But the incident yesterday is the exact situation why oftentimes in the middle of a conflict, it is difficult to draw definitive conclusions when there is conflicting information that we all face. So I will say, as it pertains to our reviews, we collect information from all the relevant parties. As we said when we released a report on this matter some time ago, we have open inquiries to the government of Israel asking for information about these specific incidents, and we'll continue, those reviews will continue.
Sorry, on this though, do you have any reason to believe that the IDF claim is more credible than the MSF claim?
So both things can be true. What MSF claimed was that he was a doctor who was a member of MSF.
Okay.
What Israel claimed is that
that's wrong?
No, I'm not saying that's wrong. What Israel claimed is that he was a doctor who was a member of MSF who was also a terrorist involved in Palestinian Islamic Jihad's rocket program. My point is, neither of those are United States verified information. So when I get asked about a strike,
He was a doctor and he was also involved in Hamas's missile program?
rocket program.
Rocket
program.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How?
I don't know. That goes to my.
Didn't the IDF tell you?
They put out a statement on this. This goes to my exact point that you see claims made by various parties on the ground, and then oftentimes you see conflicting claims made by the IDF. We will reach out to our Israeli partners about. We will reach out to our Israeli partners for more information about these. But oftentimes when I'm asked for definitive conclusions about the specifics of a strike, we are operating on incomplete information, and that's why, as frustrating as it is why I can't offer a definitive conclusion about any one strike.
In history where physicians have been, also criminals of some kind.
That's my yeah.
But you're just saying, well, MSF, which is a respectable organization, IDF, a respectable organization, but they have completely different views. So you guys need to come in in the middle and decide what,
And that's,
don't you?
That is what we do with respect to the ongoing assessments. That's the point I was making, 2 points I was making. One, with respect to ongoing assessments, when you look at that information environment, sometimes that's why it takes time to reach a definitive conclusion, because things aren't as simple as they appear at first blush, right? I get a question about it. Hold on. I get a question about it yesterday. No, I know.
It could be as simple as they were at first blush. You just don't. You don't know.
Exactly right, and you don't know. The second thing is that's why it's hard oftentimes to give definitive answers when I get asked about this from the podium, because information changes, more information comes to light, and maybe that information is correct, maybe it's not. We try to gather it and make definitive determinations.
But don't you make assessment to other countries when you don't have equally the same information? Whether it's Iran, whether it is China, whether even an ally, Russia or Ukraine or others. So is it just with Israel that you're always unable to make that conclusive results, or is it just because you don't have the information?
So first of all, I would say there are times when it is quite obvious what happened, and we do make specific determinations very quickly. So look at the World Central Kitchen strike, where it's quite obvious within a few hours, within certainly the first 24 hours, what happened and that it was a mistaken strike, and we spoke to that exactly. Other times, it is less clear. So that's the first thing. But then I would say, with respect to Israel, as with any other country, we make determinations based on the information that's available to us. We reach out, in this case, to NGOs and others who are on the ground, and we reach out to the government of Israel when trying to make assessments about individual strikes before making any definitive conclusions.
But you do accept at least what both sides agree on, that this person was a doctor.
I have no reason to dispute that. I have no reason to dispute at all that he was a doctor.
And to be clear, sorry.
Yeah,
And
that's funny.
and to be clear, you have explicitly asked Israel for evidence that this doctor was involved in Hamas.
I don't know if we have pertains to this strike. We often do.
Will you?
Hold on a second. We often do when it comes to strikes like these, when there are claims of human rights abuses or claims of civilian casualties. It is regular practice for us to do so through our embassy in Jerusalem. I can't say we've done so in this case, but it would be normal practice for us to have done so. I just haven't verified that we did in this one specific one, or that we're not doing it in the coming days, but it would be our standard practice to do so, yes.
We move to Kenya.
Sure.
I'm sure we can